What's happening, guys? Sam Adams here, and today we're talking more about Habroxia 2, an old-school space shooter launching on February 3rd across PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC, but on top of that, also on PlayStation Vita, and it is going to be $10 across all platforms. Before we dive into it, I do want to say thank you to Lillymo Games for giving me a free code for review. I've been really enjoying my time with the game, and I've been looking forward to sharing my thoughts with you all, so let's go ahead and dive into it. Right off the bat from the tutorial, you're presented a very light plot, but one that does keep me engaged throughout the entire game. In the aftermath of a brutal attack on free space, humanity sends scout ships into the star system that was at the source of the assault, but when one of the pilots does not return home, it's up to his daughter, the talented star pilot Sabrina, to find him. The tutorial for Habroxia 2 is essentially a flashback in Sabrina's childhood when she first learned that she's a very gifted pilot, and it gives you the ropes while she learns the ropes. And while this is going on, you begin to see the bond that she has with her father. Again, like I said, it's very light, but it's a nice touch. However, the real star of the show here with Habroxia 2 is the stellar old-school gameplay. Habroxia 2 is a non-linear old-school space shooter with upgrades, boss fights, and even a new game plus mode, all wrapped up in a retro package combining pixel graphics, chiptunes, and stellar gameplay. Now that is what the description says in the press release, and I couldn't have said it better myself. They completely and totally fulfilled every expectation that old-school shooter fans would have for this game. One of the first things that I noticed is the fantastic chiptune soundtrack. It's one that I would listen to on Spotify. It is phenomenal. It keeps me upbeat, it keeps the game moving, and it changes whenever you go into a boss fight just as it would in any kind of old school space shooter. It is phenomenal. The controls of Habroxia 2 are relatively simple, but they do have a level of depth that does add some satisfaction. So off the bat, you have a dual thumbstick setup. You control the ship's movement with the left thumbstick, and you control the ship's guns with the right. As you soar through the solar system, fighting bosses and killing enemies, you do collect credits that then can be transferred into upgrades for your weapons, special weapons, power-ups, and just your base cannons that you have on the front and the back of your ship. I also want to point out that the game feels like it can be as simple or as complex as you need it to be. It doesn't just thrust you into the action and kind of leave you stranded. You start to use the right thumbstick weapon from the very beginning. As you upgrade it, it becomes more powerful and the spread becomes wider, so it is still applicable in the later stages of the game. But, depending on the situation, one of these special weapons is absolutely going to come in much more handy. And so, if you do want to go the very difficult route and just use the base cannon on your ship, you can probably make it through the game by doing that, but it's going to be very, very difficult. Instead, I've found myself using rockets, cutters, and bombs more so than the base weapons, but that comes down to my personal taste. It very much so is a game that can be customized depending on your specific approach. It can often be the case that boss fights in old school games can feel somewhat repetitive, and to some degree, at first glance, you could say the same for Habroxia 2. However, there is plenty of variety in the boss fights that do add a little bit of excitement each time you reach one. The music is pumping, the boss is kind of maneuvering in a new way. It's one that you've never seen before. All of a sudden, you're trying a new tactic, you're soaring around, you're avoiding honing missiles. It just brings a lot of action in each individual boss fight. Action that is often different from the boss fight that you just finished a few moments ago. Before you dive into a level, you'll find astronauts and enemy bounties labeled on that specific level so you know what to look out for. Astronauts are floating randomly in space, and you should go up and grab them each time you pass them. Be sure not to shoot them though, they do end up dying. But on top of that, enemy bounties are applied to a random enemy within the game, so it's important to shoot as many as possible in the chance to earn that bounty. There is a third kind of collectible that's a boss bounty, but that just comes naturally through the progression of the game. The achievement system rewards each of these boss bounties appropriately, and the achievements are very well placed. Each one that I've gotten is generally worth about 25 gamer score since I'm playing on Xbox, but it is very satisfying because it pops as soon as you kill a boss, and it makes a very satisfying conclusion to what has been often an intense boss fight. All of these elements come together, the level design, the soundtrack, the weapon system, the upgrade system, to create a game that I consider to be a time warp game, where instead of sitting down and grabbing a couple of games and spending 15 minutes with it, I'll grab the controller, and I'll look up the clock and 2 hours will have passed, and I've unlocked a new slew of upgrades, I'm halfway through the solar system. It really just does keep me coming back for more, and it keeps me locked into the screen. For fans of old school space shooters like myself, Habroxia 2 is going to scratch that itch incredibly well, and it's moved directly to my top of the stack when it comes to that specific genre. It's a game that I'll come back to time after time with its incredible replay value and wide variety of weapons, and for all of these reasons, Habroxia 2 has earned 5 floating astronauts out of 5. Thanks for taking time to check out this review. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave me a like down below and subscribe to the channel for daily gaming news and updates. And on top of that, if you do pick up Habroxia 2, I would love to hear what you have to say. But until next time, you guys have a fantastic day. I'll talk to you soon, and peace.